Welcome to another episode. It feels like I need to apologise at the start of each episode where I have the intention of recording once every week, make it a weekly podcast, and it doesn't seem to be happening. Partly it's due to my mental health, which I've shared in the past, and it's been challenging as well. But again, it certainly set the intention to record weekly, and sometimes even more would be nice. So apologies to those who are reading along with A New Earth, or have most likely overtaken me, or have been waiting to listen to the next instalment of reading. So in some ways it all becomes part of the practice. What has been read so far, perhaps there's time to digest that, what has been listened to from the readings. Having some time to reflect and to absorb is always good. So perhaps we can just take a moment just to ground, just to be grateful to be here together. And in the present moment, there's a natural gratitude. Perhaps the feeling goes beyond the word. As soon as gratitude, the word, is mentioned, then it's boxed up in a certain way. But there is a grateful energy recording and being present. And perhaps you can sense that in yourself by taking time out to listen, to be in the now. And perhaps we can zoom out a little bit as well in our awareness of just to acknowledge the day you've had. Whether it's the start of your day, perhaps you can acknowledge the morning, the sleep, the rest you had last night, or if you've had a long, busy day, perhaps just to acknowledge that. And for those of you who can, just look at the week you've had as well, and perhaps it can be reflected upon in kindness, in compassion, without measuring what was done or achieved. Just acknowledge the moments how life unfolded for you in this past week, this past day or today, and just perhaps you can give it some space and acknowledge that whatever has happened has happened. It cannot be changed. There's an acceptance of the events that have occurred, and perhaps you can acknowledge the unchanging. You can acknowledge the changing of events, of what happened in each day today, and now in this present moment space, you can acknowledge how it's occurred in the unchanging, the safe stability, the secure permanence of now. Just taking some mindful breaths, just allowing this moment to be without waiting, without expecting, just letting go of everything. There's nothing to be done here. No need for thought. Just a moment of spaciousness, allowing the body to align with the simplicity of now. A noticing of the body settling down, of it returning to its natural state of ease. Without the noise or thoughts, the disturbance of thoughts and the emotions in the body. It's just, you can sense the ease, the stillness that remains. In some ways there is no need to read, to absorb. If you are truly in this restful presence in this moment, that all is taken care of. Whatever healing that needs to transpire is happening. There is no, it's flowing freely, the energy. What needs to be undone is returning to its natural state when we get out of the way of ourself, where our mind-made identity is dropped, and there's no disturbance, no blockage, it's just the alignment with life, the aliveness of life. But we are here to continue a new earth. But perhaps as you listen to the words, you can listen to them from the spaciousness that you are in this moment. I was going to say feel, but it's more accurate to say you are this spaciousness. There is no separation from you and spaciousness. There is just the spaciousness, and you can listen from there. So we have reached chapter 5. It's titled The Pain Body. The greater part of most people's thinking is involuntary, automatic and repetitive. It is no more than a kind of mental static and fulfills no real purpose. Strictly speaking, you don't think. Thinking happens to you. The statement, I think, implies volition. It implies that you have a say in the matter, that there is a choice involved on your part. For most people, this is not yet the case. I think is just as false a statement as I digest or I circulate my blood. Digestion happens, circulation happens, thinking happens. The voice in the head has a life of its own. Most people are at the mercy of that voice. They are possessed by thought, by the mind. And since the mind is conditioned by the past, you are then forced to reenact the past again and again. The Eastern term for this is karma. When you are identified with that voice, you don't know this, of course. If you knew it, you would no longer be possessed, because you are only truly possessed when you mistake the possessing entity for who you are, that is to say, when you become it. For thousands of years, humanity has been increasingly mind-possessed, failing to recognize the possessing entity as not self. Through complete identification with the mind, a false sense of self, the ego, came into existence. The density of the ego depends on the degree to which you, the consciousness, are identified with your mind, with thinking. Thinking is no more than a tiny aspect of the totality of consciousness, the totality of who you are. The degree of identification with the mind differs from person to person. Some people enjoy periods of freedom from it, however brief, and the peace, joy, and aliveness they experience in those moments make life worth living. These are also the moments when creativity, love, and compassion arise. Others are constantly trapped in the egoic state. They are alienated from themselves, as well as from others and the world around them. When you look at them, you may see the tension in their face, perhaps the furrowed brow, or the absent or staring expression in their eyes. Most of their attention is absorbed by thinking, and so they don't really see you, and they are not really listening to you. They are not present in any situation, their attention being either in the past or future, which, of course, exist only in the mind as thought forms. Or they relate to you through some kind of role play, or they relate to you through some kind of role they play, and so are not themselves. Most people are alienated from who they are, and some are alienated to such a degree that the way they behave and interact is recognized as phony by almost everyone, except those who are equally phony, equally alienated from who they are. Alienation means you don't feel at ease in any situation, any place, or with any person, not even with yourself. You are always trying to get home, but to never feel at home. Some of the greatest writers of the 20th century, such as Franz Kafka, Albert Camus, T.S. Eliot, and James Joyce, recognized alienation as the universal dilemma of human existence, probably felt it deeply within themselves, and so were able to express it brilliantly in their works. They don't offer a solution. Their contribution is to show us a reflection of the human predicament, so that we can see it more clearly. To see one's predicament clearly is a first step toward going beyond it. And the next passage of this chapter, the pain body, is titled The Birth of Emotion. In addition to the movement of thought, although not entirely separate from it, there is another dimension to the ego, emotion. This is not to say that all thinking and all emotion are of the ego. They turn into ego only when you identify with them, and they take you over completely. That is to say, when they become I. The physical organism, your body, has its own intelligence, as does the organism of every other life form. And that intelligence reacts to what your mind is saying, reacts to your thoughts. So emotion is the body's reaction to your mind. The body's intelligence is, of course, an inseparable part of universal intelligence, one of its countless manifestations. It gives temporary cohesion to the atoms and molecules that make up your physical organism. It is the organizing principle behind the workings of all the organs of the body, the conversion of oxygen and food into energy, the heartbeat and circulation of the blood, the immune system that protects the body from invaders, the translation of sensory input into nerve impulses that are sent to the brain, decoded there and reassembled into a coherent inner picture of outer reality. All these, as well as thousands of other simultaneously occurring functions, are coordinated perfectly by that intelligence. You don't run your body, the intelligence does. It also is in charge of the organism's responses to its environment. This is true for any life form. It is the same intelligence that brought the plant into physical form and then manifests as the flower that comes out of the plant, the flower that opens its petals in the morning to receive the rays of the sun and closes them at night time. It is the same intelligence that manifests as Gaia, the complex living being that is planet Earth. This intelligence gives rise to instinctive reactions of the organism to any threat or challenge. It produces responses in animals that appear to be akin to human emotions: anger, fear, pleasure. These instinctive responses could be considered primordial forms of emotion. In certain situations, human beings experience instinctive responses in the same way that animals do. In the face of danger, when the survival of the organism is threatened, the heart beats faster, the muscles contract, breathing becomes rapid in preparation for fight or flight. Primordial fear. When being cornered, a sudden flare-up of intense energy gives strength to the body that it didn't have before. Primordial anger. These instinctive responses appear akin to emotions, but are not emotions in the true sense of the word. The fundamental difference between an instinctive response and an emotion is this: an instinctive response is the body's direct response to some external situation. An emotion, on the other hand, is the body's response to a thought. Indirectly, an emotion can also be a response to an actual situation or event, but it will be a response to the event seen through the filter of a mental interpretation, the filter of thought, that is to say, through the mental concepts of good and bad, like and dislike, me and mine. For example, it is likely you won't feel any emotion when you are told that someone's car has been stolen, but when it is your car, you will probably feel upset. It is amazing how much emotion a little mental concept like my can generate. Although the body is very intelligent, it cannot tell the difference between an actual situation and a thought. It reacts to every thought as if it were a reality. It doesn't know it is just a thought. To the body, a worrisome, fearful thought means I am in danger, and it responds accordingly, even though you may be lying in a warm and comfortable bed at night. The heart beats faster, muscles contract, breathing becomes rapid. There is a build-up of energy, but since the danger is only a mental fiction, the energy has no outlet. Part of it is fed back to the mind and generates even more anxious thought. The rest of the energy turns toxic and interferes with the harmonious functioning of the body. And that brings us to the end of that passage, and it may be a good place to pause before continuing reading on the next episode. So here there is an introduction to, first of all, the birth of emotions, how emotions are created, the reaction of thought. And at the start of this chapter, there was mention of the voice in the head, the involuntary thinking, that's automatic and repetitive. And there is the distinction that you don't think, but thinking happens to you. And there is a comparison to this for further understanding that just as thinking happens, the digestion happens, circulation happens. So thinking in this way is a very natural part. Just as the body circulates blood, the mind thinks. So it underlines that it's not about not thinking, to be in that. It's just being aware of identifying with that voice, as it says here. When you are taken over, there is no distinction, there is no awareness of this voice. You are this voice. And Eckhart says here that if you knew it, if you were aware, you would no longer be possessed. That you are only truly possessed when you mistake the possessing entity for who you are. So we can see here there is the awareness, the true self, that's from the space of awareness. There is thought coming and going, thoughts arising. And then now there is the other dimension of the ego, which is the reactions of thought that occur in the body, the emotions. So thought, and then there is the reflection, the reaction of thought, the emotions occur. So there's almost an understanding of how there's almost a transparency now to the ego, the way it operates. Thought, and then there's identification with thought, and then identification with the emotions. There is no space there, and so, as Eckhart says, thought alone and emotions occur. This is fine, but when there's identification with it, when there is no space, no awareness, then there is almost a repetitiveness. And I think Eckhart notions about karma, reliving the past. And I will leave it there. Okay. So again, I would prefer to return soon with another episode, but again, it's in some strange, funny way, it's partly out of my hands. In it's accepting that life is unfolding. I'm here in this moment, but as much as I can have an intentional plan, then it's almost life will give me this opportunity to record again when it happens. But of course there is an energy in an intention. There is a communication with universal energy, with my localized energy of almost manifesting this. So hopefully I'll speak to you sooner than later. I hope, and of course I wish you well, and I will speak to you again soon. Take care.